And so it goes on, inching closer, maybe, to a resolution. The multi-party committee is meeting again this weekend, Dennis, but still no prospect of announcements of any kind until the end of June?
Until probably early July, yes. Yeah, they're locked away in Canberra. They're taking some advice from some of the government's experts, and they're having a discussion about, sort of what the next bits are in getting it all together. They had dinner at the Lodge last night with Julia Gillard, but the government and Bob Brown are talking about a July 1 announcement for agreement and details of what kind of carbon tax we're going to have. But Tony Windsor keeps saying that it won't be ready to sign up to anything until he hears from the Productivity Commission on the international scene. And my understanding is that's going to come after July 1. So I'm not sure whether that July 1 deadline is going to be all that safe.
Well, they need all the time they can get, don't they? I mean, there's a reasonable argument, I think, to put at the moment that they've lost the debate already. I mean, you look at the front page of the Sydney Telegraph 2 days ago. Sydney costs $5,000 more to live in a year than any other city. I mean, that's the kind of prism through which people are going to be looking at the carbon tax, not the environment.
I think that's
I think they have a chance to recapture the debate if they, and it comes back to that thing that we've all been talking about for months now, if they have the capacity to sell the message, once they have some figures on the compensation to try and get the message through to householders that this won't add to your cost of living, most of you, because we're going to give you the money back. I mean, that's their secret weapon, apparently, so they've got to be able to persuade
there's some support for that. That Essential research a couple of weeks ago, when they asked, and about the only organisation that had asked the detailed question, would you support a tax if that tax was used to tax 1,000 of the country's biggest polluters, and then that money was all brought back in compensation, right? Nobody really puts a question in that kind of detail. When they did, 52% supported it.
Yeah, so you've got to be able to get that message through to people. I think it comes down to the credibility of the package when we get it, that the sums add up on the compensation sort of, I hate to call it a money go round because that is flippant, but, taking money here, redistributing it, and what they do with it, if they do something beyond just giving it back to householders and giving it to emitters, but as the Greens are pushing for, if there is money there for a significant national energy efficiency program, that makes sense to people. If there is money there for something like a carbon bank or carbon trust or something to put into renewables, then I think that people could start to be persuaded that the government is serious about it, has a serious plan, and they're not going to be out of pocket. That's what it's going to rely on, isn't it?
Isn't there essentially a contradiction at the heart of this, and that is that Greg Combet and to a lesser extent Julia Gillard keep pushing the idea that the tax only applies to the 1,000 biggest emitters. Now they're going to, when eventually they put a price, they're going to have to turn around and say, well, actually it does affect every household. It doesn't just affect...
Well, no, it doesn't apply to every household.
There's a tax on the emitters, but it has an impact.
Yeah.
And then the government's message is complex. It has an impact, but hey, we're going to soften the impact. That's what they've got to be believable on.
But the real problem for the government is that it's a terrible time to be trying to do this. Cost of living is the number one issue in the community, and prices are going up all over the place. There is, as everyone admits, the Reserve Bank and the government, inflationary pressures flowing through the economy, and at the same time you've got an Australian dollar that at the moment is about just over $1.05. Everyone says it's going to go up towards $1.20, perhaps higher, so business margins are squeezed to a maximum effect. For a government to be trying to do anything, any major economic reform, with those two things happening, it's diabolical.
I think that's right, and there's been a little bit of a poisoning of the well too in the trust, the trust in this Labor government to be able to deliver on programs where they promise you that we will offset the cost, we will spend the money wisely. They still have that massive hurdle to get over.
Yeah, a lot of
trust full stop. I mean, this was a tax that wasn't going to be introduced.
Yeah, and a lot of people in the government and the Labor Party talk about the fact that Julia Gillard's unpopularity and the opposition to the carbon tax are sort of feeding each other. They're poisoning each other. One reinforces the other, and they've got to work out a way to sort of break that nexus.
Well, I know about private polling that's being done by pollsters that are piggybacking on, corporate polling, and there's no question about that. She's absolutely on the nose over cost of living issues, and the polling showing that they don't trust her on it and they don't think she can fix it.